we apologize for the technical difficulties in launching this stream. Marc, will you take it away?
I would be happy to, Tim. Thanks so much, and thank you for the behind the scenes team who you can imagine been going crazy for the last 10 minutes. But yes, hello, and happy Bastille Day to everyone. I'm Marc Scorca, a very proud trustee of the Washington National Opera. I'm also chair of the National Friends of WNO, as are all of you. It's thrilling to report that we have over 2,700 friends, and we've only just begun to ask people to stand with us, as you are. We're deeply grateful for your encouragement and generosity as WNO works to establish its institutional independence, maintain its creative freedom, and recover its endowment. Our series of videos will keep you abreast of what's happening. We'll provide news about WNO and when we have it, whenever we have it, about news about the Kennedy Center and all the other forces that will shape the future of this great opera company. In answer to a question that was submitted in advance, and we're grateful for all the questions that were submitted, and we'll get to answering some of them in this and other episodes. But yes, the recording is being shared, or the session is being recorded, and we will share the recording. And we invite you to share the recording with friends and colleagues so that we can work together to truly build a national community in support of all those who believe that the nation's capital should have an opera company of international stature. In this episode, we're going to cover everything that's happened so far in 2026. How did we get to today, when the opera company has established its independence, completed a season, and somehow gotten ready for another season? It's been a lot of work that's gone on. We want to hear what's happened, and we're going to turn to the incredible leaders of the company, Timothy O'Leary and Francesca Zambello, who have been determined and successful in shepherding the company along through these many months. I would say that their achievement is epic, even perhaps operatic. But we're going to learn all that they've been through in these past 6 months before, in the next couple of episodes, we'll learn about next season. So, Tim, let's turn to you and take it away. What is it that accumulated that led to the inevitability of your departure or your separation from the Kennedy Center on January 9?
Marc, thanks so much for the question. Thank you for your volunteer service in this capacity. Thank you to, pardon me, everybody who is tuning in. We're sorry about the delay in getting started, and thank you to everyone who has supported us over this incredible period of time as the Washington National Opera has started a new chapter. I'm also so grateful to Francesca Zambello for her clear vision about what is important, what had to happen when. So, Marc, to answer your question, what happened? In the end, it came down to a matter of survival. The Washington National Opera is celebrating its 70th year this year. We began in 1956. For that entire time, we've been an independent, not-for-profit arts organization. But in 2011, we joined in an affiliation with the Kennedy Center. What did that mean? That was essentially a contract between the opera and the Kennedy Center. Michael Kaiser was the president of the Kennedy Center at the time, and it was mutually beneficial. It was something that made the opera an artistic affiliate more deeply a part of the Kennedy Center, and it provided the opera with incredibly valuable services, namely a lot of staffing services, the fundraising staff, the marketing staff, these critical functions that a not-for-profit arts organization needs to thrive were provided in kind, free of charge, by the Kennedy Center. And the reason it became a matter of survival in late 2025 was that those services were essentially no longer being provided. We, at one point in November of 25, we had 0 people full-time on the fundraising staff of the Washington National Opera. We had lost all kinds of staff members, of course, and because of the nature of the contract, we couldn't hire the staff to replace them ourselves. And so we were having the same issue in marketing. It was way understaffed. Our audiences weren't coming. Donations weren't being handled properly. And we did find that it was also becoming increasingly challenging to be able to uphold our artistic integrity free of any interference from the management of the Kennedy Center. And these things combined to say this is a matter of survival. And our board took a very courageous vote on January 9th to say that we're going to now provide all those services to ourselves independently. We don't quite know how it will work, but we know that this is the only path forward. When the Kennedy Center came to us in late 25 and said that they'd like to find an amicable, mutual way of separating, we saw that as our only opportunity to survive.
You know, Tim, how much advanced planning could you actually do before January 9? I mean, here you were, trying to sustain the opera company with these adverse circumstances. How did you actually plan for what was coming next?
Well, I'll let Cheska describe the incredible kind of scenario planning that she engaged in, because one thing that Cheska and the artistic staff have is this kind of mentality of the show must go on. We will go on with this mission. But one way of answering your question is on January 9th, when we voted to enact this separation, we had no corporate structure of our own that was active anymore. We didn't have insurance. We didn't have employees. We didn't have, employer benefit programs, none of that. And that was January 9th. Treemonisha was scheduled to open on March 7th, and we had to begin rehearsals a month before that. So we had to make this incredible sprint to the first rehearsal of Treemonisha and then to opening on March 7th. And I should
Cheska, you could have ducked. You could have said, "Look, we've left the Kennedy Center. Let's just kiss the season goodbye." But you were determined. Just explain that determination.
I think the show must go on is in my blood and everybody's blood who's working with us. And so we had still left in our season American Opera Initiative, the new operas, Treemonisha, The Crucible, and West Side Story. Before January 9th, I will confess that having had a whiff that this might happen, I visited a number of venues throughout the city, not only for finishing the season, but for the future. And I had some thoughts lined up and had sort of said to various venues, nothing about what our real plans were. I went to all of them and said, I think we want to plan a gala here. Would you let us have a gala here? But we need 3 weeks to rehearse it, which of course for anyone who's ever done a gala knows that's absurd. So we pivoted very quickly and we went to the original site of where the Washington National Opera began historically, in part of George Washington University, Listener Hall. We opened a new production of Treemonisha directed by Denise Graves with a spectacular cast in a new adaptation of Scott Joplin's seminal operatic ragtime work of Treemonisha, which was a huge hit, sold out, people clamoring for tickets, audiences with standing ovations as we said we had left the Kennedy Center, and it was as if so many of our patrons and friends came back. It was a beautiful, bright, and very colorful production. And then in the same venue, we went on to produce a rather darker work, The Crucible, Robert Ward's opera based on the seminal play by Arthur Miller, about the Salem witch trials and how gossip and intrigue can penetrate and destroy a society. And it was not on purpose that we chose that work. That work was already in the planning. And so we performed both of those in Listener Hall. Then we went north to Baltimore, to the Baltimore Lyric Opera House, a jewel box in Baltimore, where we produced West Side Story, led by conductor Marin Alsop in a phenomenal production, which we then took, after we performed several performances there, to Strathmore Hall, also in Maryland. And then we finished our season with American Opera Initiative in our own home. Our rehearsal halls, we transformed it into a theater. And so we had 3 new operas in our home in Tacoma Park. So we finished the season, we had phenomenal audiences, and we're grateful to everyone who came.
Cheska, did you find any points of resistance? Were people always willing to help, or were they just, ready to throw in the towel on the company?
Well, I think everyone was willing to help. All the artists were grateful not to perform at the Kennedy Center. Many of them were very conflicted. Some of our stars, Janae Bridges, Ryan McKinney, Denise Graves, many of the people in West Side Story felt that they did not want to go to the Kennedy Center. And so people were grateful and willing to put up with some of the difficulties that these venues created for us just in terms of transport and housing and where are we going now. And there was a real sense of community among everyone as well as among the audience. The audience, just seeing people so happy to come back to live first class opera was very gratifying.
That's just wonderful to hear. Tim, was there ever a moment when you thought this just isn't possible?
Well,
Tell us the truth.
yeah, no, on January, as we were heading towards January 9th, and we were in that situation of no infrastructure by which to even at first be, again, an employer, let alone to be employing the hundreds of people that are required to produce an opera season, I thought, I don't know that this can be done in 30 days. And so the kind of easy choice would have been, let's just delay it. Let's say to the public, we're going to be back, but we can't go on with the schedule as it's currently planned. But this is where Francesca and I have a kind of division of labor, because she said, we have to do it. We have no alternative. People are expecting these performances. The casts are all contracted. This is when to do it. And so we decided, all right, we're going to try. If something stops us, if we hit a roadblock and we cannot do it, then we'll call it. But otherwise, we're going ahead with the plan, with the schedule as planned. And what I really found incredible was that the staff and the artists and everybody involved, we built up so much resilience, I think, as a matter of coming through COVID together, when we all had to constantly figure out how to reinvent the future, on a continual basis. And so people just kind of knew how to play their part. And it was incredible. I mean, it required heroically long hours from especially the kind of core staff that were building all this infrastructure so that the artists could do their work. But it involved quite a lot of understanding and compassion from people in all directions. And what we found was that was just there in droves. I would walk down the aisle of the theater and people would say, we're just so proud of the company for going on, and we're coming wherever, whenever, whatever you're doing, we're going to be there. That really meant a lot. That we couldn't announce next season until very late in this season. That's not normal. But people totally understood, and as soon as we announced it, we started selling subscriptions at an extraordinary rate.
Yeah, I was at the opening night of Tremonisha, and the audience response was just thunderous, prolonged and thunderous and appreciative and admiring, quite honestly. Cheska, did you actually have to rebuild the productions? Because, I mean, the Kennedy Center stage is very different from Listener Auditorium. Did you have to just completely redo the productions in a matter of a couple of months?
Our technical staff was completely able to accommodate the existing designs, especially because those had been prepared for the Eisenhower Theater, which is very close to what Listener is. The main thing was the pit, was fitting more musicians in not only the pit, but also in a sub-basement and miking them all together. And Bob Spano, our music director, did a heroic job of keeping everything together. At Strathmore and at Lyric Opera of Baltimore, those both have very big pits, and that accommodated West Side Story and a big orchestra in both of them. So I think we were very fortunate and fleet of foot in all venues to give people the best product and the product that they had hoped to see, and we were proud to present.
It was terrific. Tim, you talked about the fact that when you left the Kennedy Center, you did not have any of the basics of an administrative independence. Where are you today? I mean, do you have a staff now? Is the infrastructure rebuilt partially, fully?
Yeah, to Cheska's point about the dedication of the people who put on the productions of Washington National Opera, one of the things that we're so grateful for is that we didn't lose that staff, the artistic and production staff, all of our artists. People were having real trepidation about going on in our situation, at the old venue, shall we say. But as soon as we provided a pathway forward, everybody was on board. Unfortunately, we did lose the original development staff and the marketing staff, but we've been able to hire some of those people back. And now we've rebuilt the entire Washington National Opera staff. I should say we're in the process of doing that. So the first thing we did was what we called the lift and shift. Everyone who had been an artistic or production or administrative employee of the Washington National Opera under the old arrangement immediately got hired by the again reactivated Washington National Opera Corporation. That happened, just the first several days after we announced the change. And then in the weeks that have passed since then, we've been very gradually rebuilding the development staff, the marketing staff, et cetera. But it was extraordinary for up until quite recently. We had a full-time development staff of just 2 people and only 1 full-time person running the entire marketing effort for the Washington National Opera, with the help of a lot of part-time people and contractors and old colleagues who have been helping us. But now we're rebuilding the proper infrastructure of a world-class opera company.
Jessica, we're to talk in the next couple of episodes about the coming season. But while you were putting on these 3 operas in different venues, you were also still shopping for more venues for next year.
Yes, and I'm looking forward to future podcasts or broadcasts where we can talk about the venues. We have 7 shows in 5 different venues next season, and I think each of them are really tailored to the production, to the opera. So you will get a chance to see something in a venue that I think will be unique and a very different kind of experience, but also really focused for that piece. And just, as a hint, I think people know we are going to, here's our season coming up. We will be at Daughters of American Revolution, Constitution Hall, where we'll have a concert and 2 operas. We will be at our friends at Arena Stage, at our friends at the Shakespeare Theater Company. We'll be in our own building up in Tacoma Park, and then we will also be back at Strathmore. So I'm excited, as is all of our technical production and artistic staff, to go to these venues and to welcome audiences.
It's just incredible. I want to turn to a question that was asked in advance by James Pop, and thank you for sending in this question. I'm going to quote. It says, as the performing arts continue to evolve, what do you think Washington National Opera can uniquely offer audiences they can't experience anywhere else? What a great question that is. Jessica, let me ask you that. What does Washington National Opera offer audiences that they can't get anywhere else?
Well, first of all, we have, great international talent. We also have great national talent in our commitment to American artists. And I think the diversity of our programming is very unique. It's very different than other companies, between, contemporary works like John Adams, great classics. But I also think next season we have a world premiere by Christopher Tin. We have holiday programming. We have beloved pieces like La Traviata. And I think seeing each of them in a different venue will be a journey for everyone. Interestingly, the holiday opera next year is the Odyssey, as told for younger audiences, and we are making our own Odyssey. And I think everyone will enjoy doing that, because each of these venues offers, I think, a very special way to experience the opera, but also just a chance to discover new parts of the DC region.
One thing, Marc, I can't resist adding is that I think Francesca Zambello is really one of the great artistic minds in the arts today. I mean, this is obviously a biased point of view, but I have a great vantage point on it. And one thing that we've been developing at the WNO over these past many seasons is a kind of house style where there's a really immersive experience. We use a lot of video projection design as a technology that really moves the art form, animates the stage, but doesn't distract, pulls people in to the storytelling. Opera is the complete combination of every art form. And one thing that we're going to get to really lean into with this Odyssey, as Jessica put it, through all these different venues, is this immersive style where the audience is pulled in. Some of these venues, the audience is going to be very close to the stage. There cannot be an orchestra pit in the traditional mode, which has the effect generally of creating distance, physical distance between the audience and the performers. In many of these situations, the orchestra pit by necessity will be behind the singers, so the orchestra becomes visually part of the production, but with extraordinary costuming and video projection design and scenery that really makes the whole thing a totally theatrical, immersive experience. I think it will be, for many people, the most memorable Washington National Opera season ever.
We'll hear more details about that in the next couple of episodes. And those are August 11 and August 25 will be the next 2, where we update you about the repertoire, the casting, the venues, and some of the other details that are going on at WNO. In the meantime, I just want to say on behalf of my colleagues, your encouragement, to the company, your support of the company. There's so much that has to be rebuilt, redone, rethought now that there's the separation from the Kennedy Center. We need your moral support. We need your financial support. Please just continue to join us for these updates and let your friends know that we need them to be friends of WNO. So without further ado, thank you. Have a good rest of July, and we'll see you next month.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.